Good morning, Catherine. Today is Tuesday, and welcome to Twins Read Books, Part 2 of Desire Under the Elms. So Scene 1 starts 2 months after the last part ended, and it is Abby, Eben, and Ephraim on the farm. You can see right from the very beginning that Abby is trying to claim this place as her own, and Eben does not like that. The scene opens with her sitting on the front porch, and Eben walking around inside the house trying to figure out if there is anybody outside so he can just cut around and not have to deal with her because he doesn't really want to have anything to do with her. Eben firmly believes that Abby is trying to take his mother's place and trying to claim this house as her home and get it so she gets everything because she wants something that she can have, that she can say, this is mine, it belongs to me, no one can take that from me. Abby knows that Eben dislikes her, and she is trying her best throughout this entire section to get Eben to like her and to try and dim down his animosity of her to a reasonable level. Ephraim, on the other hand, he marries this woman because he was feeling very lonely and he wanted to have someone that he could share his life with. And as we learn later in a monologue of his, even when he has a wife, it is very lonely for him because they don't understand him. They don't understand the fact that he built this farm from nothing and it really belongs to him and it matters to him. Ephraim also sees Eben as very, very weak and soft because he doesn't have the same values as him. He doesn't want to work the land as much. He wants to try and get something of his own very quickly. He doesn't want to work for it. And he took his mother's place as the person who cleans the house, the person who cooks, and the one who takes care of everyone. Ephraim sees him as very soft for that and very weak and doesn't believe that he deserves to own this farm. So all of Scene 1 is dedicated to Abby and Eben fighting over the fact that they both have the same end goal in mind. They both want to have something that they can call their own, but Eben sees Abby as kind of treading on his turf. So Scene 2 takes place entirely in the upper half of the house. It is at night, and Abby and Ephraim are in their bedroom, sitting on the end of the bed, trying to figure out how to be a couple because they are very, very different. Ephraim is 70 years old, Abby's 35. They have nothing in common except that they're married to each other and they now live in this place. Ephraim is trying to explain to Abby why this farm matters so much, and Abby is trying to convince him to leave it to her. So she tells Ephraim, and Ephraim agrees with her, that the farm needs a new son because Eben is not seen as a suitable inheritor because he is seen as very weak, because he doesn't want to work the land, he just wants to cook and he wants to keep his mother's spirit alive. Ephraim goes into a very long monologue telling all about how the farm got started. So he talks about how he came to the land when he was 20 and he made the choice to work the land, and everyone thought he was crazy because it was made up mostly of rocks. He's a man of God. He talks about how he felt God's spirit. He knew that if he worked hard, he would be able to make this land into something that was worthy to raise a family. And he went off to California and tried to work the land there, which was a lot easier because it had much richer soil, it had less rocks in it. But when he was there, he felt God saying, this is not where you belong. You belong somewhere where you can work and work hard for what you have to earn. And so Ephraim left California and he gave all of the land that he had to somebody else who would want an easier path. The unbelievable part about that is the fact that Ephraim is very focused on keeping everything that is his in his own hands. So he doesn't like it when we first meet Abby, how she says, oh, this is mine now. He says, no, it's ours because it also belongs to me. And he is very adamant about keeping everything under his name because it belongs to him as well. And we see that Ephraim is sort of a neutral character because he doesn't have that much sway in a lot of things because Abby is using him as a way to get money and to get something that she can grasp and say, this is mine. And Ephraim is hated by Eben because Eben sees Ephraim as a murderer because he worked his mother to death. So Ephraim, he doesn't really have anybody on his side because Abby is just staying on his side as a way to manipulate him, and Eben doesn't like him at all and is trying to kill him in order to get what he sees as his own earnings. At the end of Scene 2, Abby and Eben are in his room and Abby kisses him passionately and says, you know what, I'll meet you down in the parlor because it's my room now. And Eben is very offended, and at the end of Scene 2, Abby has gone down to the parlor and Eben is trying to decide whether or not it's worth it. So Scene 3 opens with Abby sitting in the parlor parlor, and she is horrified because Eben told her that is where his mother was laid to rest. So she was laid there when they were trying to figure out where to bury her, and he knows that her spirit is still there. Abby is very scared because she said, when I first got into this room, I felt like there was something here, but the minute you walked in, it softened. And Eben is very matter of fact, and he says, it was my mother. That room has been closed since she died, which was about 9 years before this play takes place. When you see the stage directions, it's been closed off, and it is ugly because it housed death. The family died in that room because everyone fell apart after Eben's mother died. Eben realizes that his mother's spirit has sort of been stuck in that room and stuck in the house and in the land of the living because Eben believes that she was trying to torture her husband for what he did to her, for forcing her to work and working her knuckles to the bone to try and make the whole farm work. And when Abby and Eben are in there, Eben sees it as his mother leaving, saying, you guys can do it together. That as long as you two stay together, everything will be fine. Ephraim will die and he will suffer because of it. And you can sort of see the desperation in Abby as trying to find something that can belong to her because she is trying her best to get Eben to like her and to love her, because she sits there and she says, I love you. Your mother is saying that you can love me, so why don't you? And he says, because it's my mother and you're married to my father. What am I supposed to do about that? And he tries to justify why he's pushing off her advances, but at the end of the scene, he feels like his mother's spirit has left, and he says, you know what? This is a good thing, what happened here, so let's continue this. And he stops denying the fact that he is in love with Abby. Scene 4 starts the next day in the morning when it is time to start working on the fields, and you see Eben come out, and he's a changed man. He is happier, he's less angry at his father, he's smiling, he's like skipping towards the barn to go wake his father to start working on the fields. And you see Abby open the window to the parlor, and they are discussing the fact that their night of romance was good for the family and for the house, and the fact that it now feels more like home because there's actual love in it now. This is the first time that we see Abby disconnecting herself from what she sees as her property, because she says, I'm gonna air out my room now, and Eben gives her a look and she says, our room. And you see her sharing, and I think it's because she recognizes that they're both after the same goal and she can do something about it. And we also see a change in Eben. When he goes out to work in the fields in the morning, he feels much better because he knows that his mother is finally at rest. When he sees his father, instead of greeting him with the normal animosity that he usually talked to him, he laughed. He talks to him as if he's a friend. And for the first time, we see that Eben is okay with the farm not belonging to him. He knows that it's going to good hands. He knows that no matter what, it's going to end up going to Abby, and he will live longer, so he'll eventually get it. It will eventually belong to him, and he's okay waiting. Overall, through this entire part of the play, all of the characters are after the same thing. They just want something that they can call their own. We see it with Ephraim with the farm when he talks about how much he worked to make this farm what it is, and we see it with Eben when he talks about how the room belonged to his mother and how now it belongs to him and how this whole farm should be his. And you see Abby who talks about how she married Ephraim because she knew that she would get something out of it, and how she'd always worked for other people, and for the first time she's working for herself, and she's working so she'll have something in the end. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, is that they're all after the same goal in general, but it's very different to each of them. Catherine, I'll see you tomorrow.